Hi Countryside, it's Joe Smith, your general manager, and I'm here today with Larry Franzen, our master board president. And Mr. Franzen, I think this is the first time I've had you on video.
It is.
That's great. I appreciate you spending some time with me this morning.
Okay.
So we're here today to talk a little bit about voting. As we approach the upcoming annual meeting and the project vote, there's been a lot of conversation out in the community about voting, how it works at Countryside, and we thought it was a good chance for us to explain some of it.
Good.
So
let's do it.
We've got some topics, we'll run through some topics this morning, and as always, if there's questions or comments, you can reach out to myself or any one of our board members, but I think we'll have a good clarification here this morning. So.
Well, we hope so.
All right.
I'm not sure. It's always confusing.
It is a little confusing, but that's why we want to make sure we get everybody on the same page.
Right.
So let's start with kind of the vote timeline and the important dates that are upcoming here.
Okay.
So the first date that's really important is March 10th, which is our annual membership meeting.
Right.
And this is at New Hope Church on Davis at 9 a.m.
Correct.
And that meeting is when we will obviously go through our typical agenda for that meeting, but the majority of the discussion will be on the project.
Right.
And kind of the final proposal, if with some minor tweaks. We'll talk about the financing, and we'll have a discussion on voting again at that meeting.
Okay.
In the process. So that's Thursday, March 10th. And then the voting window for the project officially opens on Monday, March 14th.
Right.
So that is when the ballots will go out, or the hard copy ballots or the electronic ballots.
Right.
And that voting window we're going to keep open until April 5th. So just about 3 weeks, a little longer than 3 weeks.
Right.
So those are really the three important dates that everyone should be aware of now. There was some questions on, are we voting on March 10th? And that's not how it works.
Right.
So you'll have plenty of time to cast your vote beginning March 14th.
Right. And one of the reasons for that is that we have members really all over the world. We have members in Europe who are not here. They need to get the information and then have an opportunity to cast their vote as well.
That's correct.
So that's why you have about a 3-week window, so there's time for information and material to get back and forth.
Right. So March 10th, March 14th, and April 5th. Those are the three key dates.
Those are the dates.
Okay. So what are we voting on?
We're voting on the project, approving the project, and the financing of the project. Mm-hmm. Whether it's special assessment, the loan, those are all terms that will be included in the ballot.
Yes. And we will, ahead of the ballot actually going out, we will talk through the wording of the ballot at the annual meeting.
Correct.
So we'll try to explain it a little bit better, but it has been drafted by the Master Association's attorney.
Right.
So.
And part of the wording is there because that's what the financial institutions require in terms of their support for providing the loan.
That's correct.
That way.
That's correct. And the one other thing I wanted to clarify on that is, when you hear the term special assessment, the financing and the repayment is the actual special assessment. So
correct.
If a resident chooses to do the 10-year repayment, it's essentially a 10-year special assessment.
Right.
And that was was required by the financial institution.
Right.
So okay. Overview of voting. This is where we probably get the most questions, right?
Right.
So kind of let's talk about how it works here at Countryside and.
Okay. Just to go back and go through a little of the history as best I know it, and I was not here and not in the attorney's offices when U.S. Homes put this document together back in 1987 or 86. And my assumption is that this is not just for Countryside, that this is a generic document that U.S. Homes was using in multiple communities. And there are a number of reasons, and then they came up with the block voting process. And as I think about it, there are a number of reasons for that. But My assumption is that the concern was that if you don't do it this way, there's always the possibility of some small group, like we have really seven different groups here between countryside condos, Country Haven, verandas, Country Hollow, Country Manor, Country Glen, and the single family homes. Those are all groups. And I think the concern that they had in their mind was that we don't want to set up a system where one of those groups can dominate and be able to dictate to the whole community how something is done just to satisfy their own individual needs.
Right.
So by putting this kind of system in place, they're requiring and involving all the community. And I think that's really what was behind the process.
Sure.
So that we couldn't just have one community try to dictate to the whole community
Yeah.
if they had something special that they were after.
Sure.
So in that process then, we ended up with 34 homeowners associations. Each of those associations is a block. Now, and we'll talk about the multifamily buildings first.
Okay.
Like Countryside Condos or Country Haven or Country Manor, those are all generally buildings with 30 units in a building. The voting is that building will vote, and however many people vote in that building, the majority of those votes determine the 30 votes for that building. It's not one vote per building, it's 30 votes per building. And so if, for example, if 20 people vote in the building and 15 vote yes and 5 vote no, all 30 votes are cast as a yes.
Okay.
On the other hand, if the 15 votes vote no and 5 vote yes, all 30 votes are cast as a no. And then in the end, all of these associations are all added together to make up the total vote. Now, the one exception to that is when we get to single-family homes. Except for homeowners one of single-family homes, they are a block vote and work just like the multi-unit buildings work. The rest of the single-family homes are individual votes and are counted as the vote is cast by each individual home.
Yep.
So that then becomes the total that gets added together, and that's how we arrive at our total vote.
Okay.
I hope that's relatively clear.
I think you got it. Yeah, I know there's always a lot of confusion out there, but this is really, our master documents and then the local sub-association documents are the documents that determine this.
Right. And it's important to me that those documents work together.
Yes.
So our master documents talk about having a vote of all members.
Yes.
Well, if you look at any election, rarely do all members vote. Even in a national election, all members do not vote. And so it becomes very difficult and challenging if with that kind of a requirement, if you don't have a block voting process in place, you would never get enough votes to approve anything.
Right.
And so that would be a real challenge
Right.
if you were to try to do it some other way.
Yeah. And it's not specific to, what we're voting on now, but
No. It has been done before for putting the resale fee into the documents. It was done when we had to use some land from over in the preserve area. It wasn't really preserved then, it was just restricted area where we moved the tennis courts a few years ago because our documents said we couldn't use that.
Right.
And so we had to modify the documents to allow us to use that land.
Right.
So it's been used on 3 or 4 occasions
So
over
the community
years,
has
but
gone
not a
through,
lot.
Yeah,
Just
they've gone
to-
through the exercise
Right,
before.
it takes a major time to do that.
Sure, excellent. Okay, so one question that I get quite often is, my wife is a yes vote and I'm a no vote, and I need to remind residents that it's 1 vote per door.
Correct.
And again, that's designated by the membership.
Right.
So that is in place, for husband, wife, or if there's multiple owners on a
Right.
particular
And,
unit.
and there are
So-
some units that I'm sure have multiple owners. Maybe several couples went together or a corporation owns one.
Yes.
There's 1 vote for that unit.
exactly.
whoever is designated within that unit.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get between
No,
husband
that's
and
why I
wife
say
and try
you-
to figure that one out.
You work that out within your four walls.
That's
so,
right.
Okay.
That's right.
Let's talk a little bit about ties, particularly in a block voting situation. So let's say you have a building of 30, and you have 10 yes votes and 10 no votes.
Right. First of all, that's pretty rare that it would come, come up. But if it does, the association president or his designee, whoever it is that certifies the vote for that unit, for that homeowners association, will cast a deciding vote in terms of direction for that.
Yeah.
So that's what our attorney has told us is the appropriate way to handle that, and so that's what we intend to do.
So it's that building rep or voting rep
Building rep,
casts the block one way or the other to the master association.
and we probably ought to say the homeowner association rep, because in some cases I think they're like maybe in the verandas or the hollows, there's more than one building that's in one association.
Correct.
So it would be the association president or the rep that would cast the deciding vote.
Gotcha. Okay. And I would expect it to be pretty rare, but
Yeah,
we've had a lot of discussion with our attorney in the event it comes
We're trying
up.
to cover all the bases in our discussions with him about potential options and alternatives that could come up.
Okay. All right. The other thing that we talk about quite often is the 2/3 requirement for golf and social.
Correct.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. We have to hit a 2/3 positive vote of both groups, the golf membership groups and those that are only social members. So it can't be just 2/3 of 1133. It's 2/3 of 850 and 2/3 of 286.
283.
283.
Yes.
So those are the two groups. We have to have a 2/3 positive vote of each of those groups independently, or the vote fails.
Okay. Okay. And that is designated in our master documents.
Correct. That's
Okay.
in our master documents that way.
Okay.
Again, I think the purpose is so that we can't allow one group or the other to dominate the conversation and to force something on the other group that they may not want.
Sure. Understandable.
So that's that. I'm sure that's how it was. The reason it's that way.
Okay. And one of the last items that we have here, and this comes up, pretty often, is what is the process to validate the votes and the ballots?
Okay.
So once that voting window closes on April 5th,
Right.
what is next? How do we
Once the
validate
voting window closes and all the votes are in, then the building representatives, whether it's the president or his designee in writing, will come to the office and will certify the vote for that particular HOA,
Okay.
whether it's one building or two buildings or whatever it might be. But for the most part, it's a building by building.
Okay.
But they will come in, they will be called into the office individually. The secretary of the board will be there in attendance,
The master board.
the master board, to certify, to verify the whole total result when all of them are counted together. So they will be called in to certify their particular area.
Okay. And then once that's done, assuming the vote passes, everything kind of gets formalized at the next board meeting, which would be April 21st.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll have
As
a little
we
bit
do
of
our
time.
whole budgeting process, then everything will begin to happen at that point
Yeah. Excellent.
for the next steps to proceed with the whole project.
There's a lot to happen between now and then.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. I think the last reminder that I have here is just in terms of mailing addresses. We've been reminding residents to make sure, let the office know if you're here in Countryside and want to receive your Countryside mail here, to just let us know in the office so we can make that change. A lot of residents they might be here, but they have their mail from up north forwarded here. So we're still mailing stuff to your northern address, then it gets forwarded down here, which is fine, but we're sending so much through the mail right now, and especially with this coming up, the quickest way is to let us know that you're here, and we'll make sure you get it mailed directly here. The other thing too is if you have submitted a written consent for electronic voting, all of the ballot material is going to come via email. So again, if you want to receive electronic voting, you haven't done so, there's a form you just fill out with the office and you'll receive it all email. If you haven't done so, you're going to get it over US mail. So
if you're uncertain what address you have in, take a look at where the brochure, the final brochure, was mailed. If you got it here, then we have your address here at Countryside. If you got it up north and don't have it here, you must have your up north address in our files.
Great
here.
advice. Great advice.
So that's be an easy way to confirm for you, for yourself, where your address is that we have.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Well, Mr. Franzen, I appreciate you spending some time this morning. I hope that clarifies some things for our residents. As always, if you have any other questions, you can reach out to myself or any one of our board members.
Correct.
Really. But I think you've gone through this a number of times. You were very active in the board with the Wellness Center and that whole project, so I know you've been a great resource to me.
Good.
And if we don't have the answer, we will certainly find it for you.
That's right.
Thanks,
So
Countryside. We appreciate
hope that's
it.
helpful and clears the air a little bit.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway, on the voting process.
And we'll have much more discussion at this, particularly at the annual membership meeting. So if you're able to attend that, please make sure you do that. We'll have it available on Zoom as well. But again, in-person attendance is recommended for that.
Yeah, Zoom is great, but it's not nearly the same as being there in person.
No, that's right.
So.
Excellent. Well, Countryside, questions, comments, feedback, send them our way. We'll see you around the club real soon. Thank you.
Thank you.